Super Mario RPG. Man, was this game a huge part of my childhood. And now that there's a remake for the Nintendo Switch, I can relive this joyous game once again. After many months of waiting, I finally got my own copy, and I can hardly wait to pop this bad boy in and start playing. What the? Where did my game go? I've seen these guys before. They were one of many dastardly villains of Smithy's gang. While many were memorable and challenging to fight, none were quite as notorious as the Axem Rangers, and the inspiration of today's project. Join me on my creative process on how I made my own toy replicas of my favorite boss fight in Super Mario RPG. Now let's get to it. This is a special project where I'll be using wood, and lots of it. These large domes are the perfect shape to make the heads of the Axem Rangers. I'm essentially making 5 of the same characters with minor differences between each one. With this very long dowel rod, I can cut out 4 of the 5 bodies needed. First by marking the lengths, then say hello to Mr. Handsaw. I will now mark my spots where I will drill openings to connect the head and arms. Here's one of them done as my example. Now to work on the arms. Using a much smaller dowel rod, I will need to cut 10 equally sized pieces for the arms. I do plan on making them have some type of articulation as well. But first, more drilling. These tiny little ball joints meant for hobby kits and Gundam figures should do the trick. I plan on using the smallest ones here. Just need to snap them into place. The fit should be nice and snug when all connected parts are together. As you can see, there's just enough mobility to create some nice poses when it's all done. I figured this would be a better option than using wire. With 4 of these bodies now made, the last body will be a little bit different, so these old paper rolls from medical tape that I saved should do the trick. Shaving off one of them just a bit, so that my proportions are just right. Now to connect them and thicken up this body up some more. With good old Cosclay. I added around 2 layers of clay just to get the right amount of thickness that I needed. Last thing to add is the simple bottom piece to each one. Not really sure what to call this. It is in pants, and it's kinda like a skirt. I don't know, either way, it provides some stability to the body. Now with the bodies out of the way, I can focus on the heads. Axem Red, Black, and Yellow have the same size heads. So Axem Green and Pink, I will need to sculpt, requiring a more custom fit size. First with Green, he has a more narrow but taller head. As for Pink, her head is just slightly smaller than the standard size. They all have this single spike on top of their heads, so I'm using some old spikes I've had during my punk rock era. Now for the facial features. They have these tube-like mouths that's very reminiscent of Birdo, creating this with a big and small round clay cutter. Then it's just rolling up some oval-shaped eyes for each member. Here are a sample of all 3 type heads completed. Finishing off the arms by adding the hands. I have these wooden beads that already have a hole through it. making it a quick and easy way to complete the hand. As for the feet, I just sculpted some simple egg shapes onto smaller wooden domes. Here's the finished result after much sanding and shaping. Connecting it to the body with this tiny piece of wire. I plan on reinforcing this by covering it with some clay. Other than that, this body is all complete. Last thing to add is their all-important weapon of choice, the axe. These wooden skewers are a good size to build upon. Just need to cut them down to size. I also filed the end to a sharp point. This will create a secure hold when adding the pointy ends, using more metal spikes. Rolling out a wide slab of clay, I will fold it over and sandwich the stick inside. Using this little axe pattern I drew up will help with making all the axes look precise and consistent. Remove all the unnecessary excess. Then it's just reshaping the blade. It's looking really good. Just needs to make the rest of them. With that, we now have all 5 members sculpted. We can now move on to the painting. Starting first with priming each and every one a simple base coat of white. Mainly on the torso, arms, and face, as well as the axe. These areas will get a shiny coat of metallic silver later on. Otherwise, it's just coloring each character in their own respective color. Something I just personally want to say is that this group of misfits was my absolute favorite boss fight in my most favorite Mario game. It was just one of the best things during my childhood that encapsulated all the things that shaped my interest at that moment in time. Not to mention the fact that it's a parody on the Power Rangers, or Super Sentai if you're more familiar with the original Japanese version, which I was a huge fan of at the time, along with many other children that grew up in the 90s would remember. I had been eagerly anticipating this build for years, and ever since the June Nintendo Direct, I already knew I had to make this project happen with the new remake coming out. Super Mario RPG was truly the game that made me a Mario fan. So this collaboration that Nintendo did with Square was very unexpected. So anyways, back to the build. We can't forget the lashes and some eyeliner for Pink. She's all about beauty after all. Some cool shades for Axem Black, since he's all about style. That will do it for all the Axem Rangers. Now on to phase 2 with the blade. This shampoo bottle that I've saved for a while now is the perfect size and shape to make the head for the blade. With the addition of this paper bowl, I can begin by building my lower structure. Once it's traced, then I can cut out the hole. I'll just save this for later. Using some masking tape, I can plan out how the face will look. The size and placement needs to be just right. Before I continue, I'm going to finish building the lower structure. I have this plastic Tupperware that looks to be a good size to use as a mold. Just going to line the inside with some plastic wrap. With equal parts of A and B mixed thoroughly. Bringing back my paper bowl, this time with the edge removed. This will serve as the inner opening of the structure. Then it's just smashing my clay all around the side to build up my dome-shaped base. I just realized it might not be tall enough where I originally marked my baseline. So after mixing up some more clay, I'm going to fill it all the way to the edge. Now that it's all dry, I can finally demold. It's still very rough around the edges right now, but at least the main shape is there. I'm just going to fill in all the necessary areas and give it a good sanding from top to bottom off camera. Moving on to creating the two axe blades on the sides of the head. Starting with a half circle, I can sketch out my blade and adjust accordingly. The proportions now are just right. With my two patterns, I will transfer them onto some cardboard. Then it's covering them with some clay. Cosclay specifically. Tracing out a layer of clay on one side. And then the other side. And refining the shape as well. Now let's cut out the face. Thankfully this bottle is pretty easy to cut through. Now to just remove this unnecessary little top on the bottle. As well as half of the dome from the back. Last thing for this helmet is to cover up that little cutout at the top. A little Apoxie Sculpt will help fix that. Here it is, all patched and sanded. Now onto the face. I'll be repurposing this plastic container that used to have cleaning wipes in them. I won't be needing the top or the bottom, so let's get rid of that. Then it's cutting it to size. Reapplying my face template. Drawing on the openings for the eyes, nose, and mouth, then cut out. Here I decided to sculpt on the nose. It's simple enough and much more durable making it this way. I modeled a lot of this build based on the classic version of this game. Just about done with the face now. I ended up cutting part of the top to fit inside the helmet. One last little detail is to add those little round studs underneath its eyes. These should be just the right size. The little claw grips on them will keep it nice and secure. Remember this cap from earlier? It's the perfect size for a platform to fit right inside the helmet, removing all the unnecessary trim along the edge. Just gonna fill in half of the empty space on the bottom, along with two magnets that will come in handy later on. The fit for these three main pieces needs to interlock with each other. Sizing is very important here. Now with our base structure out of the way, time to make the rest of the details. For the eyes, I'll be making them out of these round silicone molds using UV resin. This size mold looks pretty good, along with some red ink for color. I plan on only filling the molds halfway to make little dome shapes, since that's all I really need to cover the eye sockets. Now to cure it with the light, I do this about 2 to 4 times on the new side to ensure that the whole thing is properly cured. Once it's cool to the touch, it's ready to demold. These came out great. Just need to shave the tops off a bit to match with the face. Now the blade also has this big headband piece covering his forehead, doing a simple mock-up first. I also plan on using this little wooden piece for that little bulb in the middle. With some brass fasteners, they will help secure the headband onto the helmet. Now to bulk it out with more Cosclay. Essentially, I'm just stacking about 3 to 4 layers of clay, sandwiching the fasteners in between the bottom 2 layers, creating a seamless look when attaching the headband. Attaching it to a tape roll so that it retains its curve after baking. I will be spray painting the helmet purple off camera. As for the face and side pieces, I will hand paint them on with this acrylic silver. My dome base is next, and as you can see, it's nice and smooth after multiple sessions of vigorous sanding. I filled in the empty space inside with foil for stability. Adding one of these tape rolls inside will give the blade some height. One last element I had to incorporate was making the eyes light up. These fairy lights will do just fine. With everything painted, it's time to put it all together. I use a combination of both hot glue and super glue. So with that, we can jump right on over to the final look. So despite how exhausted I was trying to finish this project, I really valued every bit of the process. Now to highlight some key features in this build. I added some magnets to the bottom of Axem Red, so that when he stands on top of the head, it snaps into place. These are very strong magnets by the way, so it feels super sturdy. So I opted for a simple mouth cover since I couldn't figure out a way to make the mouth open and close like sliding doors. I can just simply pull it off and snap it back on, and have easy access to turning on the lights. Now this blade mecha can really come to life. I'm still quite bummed I couldn't finish this project in time for the release date of the game. If I had known all these setbacks I had and how much time I spent, I would have started much sooner. But it's all done now, and you know what? Better late than never. So what do you think of my piece on the Axem Rangers? Is there another character you would like to see me create? Let me know all of that down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more art related videos like this in the future. I'm going to take a nice short break for the rest of November and finally get around to playing this game. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.